I'm very grateful for the Catholic education which I received at St. John's Weston and at Newman High School. And I confused it with Cardinal Newman because in my diocese there's a Cardinal Newman High School, which is John Henry Cardinal Newman, different from John Neumann, as Bishop Flavin would remind us, high school. I'm very grateful, and as I reflect on those years, what I realize is that I was really sheltered in really a Catholic culture where Catholic language and Catholic ideas and Catholic identity was just a part and parcel of the whole culture. And I realized, having been in two other dioceses since I've left the Diocese of Lincoln, is that the absence of Catholic schools, or the absence of a strong Catholic ethos within those schools, really deprives the youth of a major portion of what we want to do for our youth in our Catholic schools, and that's to give them an experience of the Church properly understood, of the value of their immortal souls, and of the need to have principles and values that are gospel-based and deeply rooted in the very context of their lives. And so I'm extremely grateful for that, and I really do look at some of the challenges of Catholic schools, and very fortunate here in Lincoln in that tuition is still largely manageable. But in almost every other place in the United States, it really is tuition out of range of the possibility of anyone who wants to go there capable of going there. And so the need for additional support, both by the parish and by foundations, is really essential in order to have those schools continue to exist and to be available for those whom pastors would love to have to go to that school, without having to feel like, if I send 10 kids from my parish to this school, I can't afford to subsidize them, I can't afford to help them, but these are the kids that I know as pastor I want in our Catholic school.
And you've touched on some of it, but what do you see as the biggest threat to Catholic education right now?
Well, it certainly, in my mind, it's been for a long, long time the Catholic identity within the school. And there is a danger that we lose a focus of what is the purpose of Catholic education. And unless we are clear that the purpose of Catholic education is to raise up future Catholic leaders, it can have a good mission of aiding and assisting those who are more poorly educated, of helping people get into good colleges, of having excellence in education, or even wonderful athletic prowess. Those are goods, but they're not the purpose and the reason why Catholic schools exist. And so the biggest challenge in my mind is that in many places, and certainly it's a risk for Lincoln as well, there is a danger that the very identity and purpose for a Catholic school begins to be eroded and or forgotten. And once you lose the heart and core of Catholic education and forget that we are about raising up future Catholic leaders deeply imbued in the faith, the moment we lose that, we become a private school. We become a wonderful academic institution. We become a place that's noted for excellence in education, but not necessarily identified in that necessary way as a place where the Catholic faith is deeply lived and experienced and witnessed to by faculty, by parents, by students.
You spent so many years in Nebraska. Can you talk about what this state and what the Lincoln Diocese has meant to your formation as a man?
Yeah, I realized early on that being a priest in the Diocese of Lincoln, and subsequently reflecting on what it meant to be a high schooler in the Diocese of Lincoln, I mean, many things we take for granted, and largely those more traditional family-based, rural-oriented values that are so much a part and parcel of the, of the neighborhood and the culture. And I can remember as a young student going away to the seminary in Denver, that I was in my freshman class with students who were from high schools in Denver that had 300 students in the graduating class and had, lived in a very, very large city. And I thought, here's someone who's had contact with hundreds of, classmates and hundreds of neighbors. And here I come from a high school with, 65 classmates, and, the nearest neighbor is a mile away. But after the first year, I realized that I had closer connections with those 65 people in my high school class, and I knew every neighbor within a 10-mile radius, whereas my friends from Denver didn't know the people who lived next door. And so with this sense that, in the Diocese of Lincoln, there is this family community orientation, and it's visible and tangible within the very parishes, that people exist. And I find many, many parishes, and your parish, St. Peter's, is one, where the folks who come there for Sunday worship find in that community the people that they associate with and socialize with, throughout the course of the week, because that becomes the place where they meet and encounter their friends. So it's not only a place that they go to worship God, which is good and necessary, but they go recognizing that we are members of a community. That's a unique gift that I see present in the Diocese of Lincoln, and which I really miss greatly, both in Oregon and in California.
Society and culture can present so many challenges to us today. What's your advice to the Catholics in the Lincoln Diocese?
It's just to maintain a firm and consistent, joyful faithfulness, and recognize that there are huge challenges which face the world, but those are a part of the world, and that to the best of our ability we have to continue to live boldly and faithfully and stand firm for our values. And I'm edified and hopeful because the young people that I see are much more fearless in terms of sort of confronting that culture than I am. I'm in a generation that's fearful of offending someone. The young are pretty much in your face and say, that's your opinion, that's fine, here's my opinion, and a lot more give and take. And they do that joyfully and boldly, and I know things like the NET teams and the focus teams, part of the University of Nebraska Newman Center activity with the focus. I mean, that's a youthful evangelizing enterprise that I'm amazed by, and I stand in wonderment of, because it's not my nature or temperament. I tell people it's sort of like there are folks who can get in an elevator and the door closes behind them and they're talking to the people in the elevator. Most people are a little more like me. We turn and face the buttons and keep silent until our floor comes and we get off. So that engagement, I'm amazed by it. I love to see it, and I generally do very much appreciate and express gratitude to those young people who are, bold and forthright in their faith and try to be a source of encouragement to them, recognizing that they have gifts and talents and an ability to engage that I don't have. And I have the background, the education, the theoretical knowledge, but in terms of that temperament or personality that engages in that way, I just have to stand in wonderment at their ability to do that. So the challenge, I think it is largely cultural, and obviously just the whole identity of the human person, and what does it mean to respect the dignity of the human person in all of its aspects and all of its forms. That's so hugely under attack, and it is a sense of the result of agnosticism or atheism, or man viewing himself as nothing more than raw matter out of which he can make whatever he chooses, wants, desires, or longs for. So it's a real, even though it's done under the guise of autonomy and freedom and independence, it really is a diminution, of the beauty and dignity of the human person. And so that saddens me, And so being in a culture like Nebraska, where I think, at least for the time being, the notion of family and generativity and joy in children, all of those aspects really appear to the world to be entirely right and true and good. The world in general doesn't have that kind of a value-rooted system.